the soul field, connecting to the resonance of our divine expression. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the mind, or our minds. My name is Chiyona and I'm hosting this podcast with my dear friend Megan Franklin. Hi, Megan.
Hey, Bessie, what's up?
Good. How are you?
I'm really good. We just got back from an amazing trip to Toronto and Japan. So I'm adjusting to being back to this time zone and getting back into the flow of service and helping my clients and being that lantern in the darkness.
Yes, totally. Jet lag is real. This morning I woke up and I was like, what day is it? Why am I
Where am
awake?
I?
Yeah.
When is it?
Yeah, going to two different time zones. We didn't just go to one different time zone. We went to two different zones before we came back home.
Yeah, you a little worse than me because you came from Seattle to Toronto and that was
That's
just kind of a easy trip for me, but
that's
yeah.
true. That's
How
true.
are you?
I'm good. I'm doing this run that I'm part of at this AK that I'm working up towards for April 5th in Toronto. And yeah, I've been running about a mile and a half a day, and I might need a break today. We'll see. I've been doing it every day for the last few days.
Well, you
So
look really good. You look really alive and vibrant. So I think that run is definitely helping you.
thank you. My knees say otherwise.
Yeah.
My knees
Well,
are like going down the stairs, like ow, ow, ow.
definitely feel like you're alive.
Yeah, definitely keeping me aware of my body for sure.
100%.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, reintegrating after all these major programs that we did with the Modern Mystery School, finishing the School of Mage program, working towards graduation. Megan, like I'm so proud of us for being able to make it through. So,
What a blessing. What a gift.
total blessing, and just reintegrating into how the weather and the landscape that I live in Seattle. It's
Yeah.
pretty.
It's interesting because everything we do is about the mind, right? And yet we still are physical. So
Yeah.
when we come back home, it's like, oh, whoa, boom, body, like I have to
Totally.
eat. So it's
Totally.
like I have to do these things, right? And I'm not just all spiritual. Like we're a multifaceted, multidimensional being. And so, coming back after big programs like this, there is an integration period and remembering that we're physical, remembering that, we're living life and that stepping back into service, I think has always been what's helped me with that integration period. And yeah, mind is a big piece of that and moving the mind, using our imagination to create in our world.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of mind to really move the physical body. This is what I'm realizing with my daily run, and it's all over mind over matter. That's what I tell myself when I don't want to go run. Right? Like it's mind over matter. I'm going to do it anyways. My legs are telling me otherwise, but I'm going to make them do it anyways. But how much of that is truly actually what's happening, that our bodies and our minds are super connected. So if our body doesn't feel well, it's going to affect the mind and vice versa. If we're not reading good articles or good content and we're digesting a lot of negativity, how is that affecting our physical body? How is that affecting our lives?
Yeah, 100%. Because again, like there is an interconnectedness of like what is going on in here is going to affect here, and it's almost like the microcosm of the macrocosm. Because our body is kind of like the micro, but when we think of the mind, when I think of all as mind, I think of the universe. And so universally, we can create lots of goodness and beauty in our lives. And I like to think of like good and beauty and art and science are all relative, like they all work together. And the body and the mind are kind of like that same thing.
Yes, we didn't come to this experience to have a physical body for absolutely no reason. There is a big component to this physicality, to this density we call physical life. However, we can't lose focus in the fact that we were not always physical.
Right. And see,
Hmm.
our eternity as galactic beings, as eternal beings, is that this is a vacation. This physical body is a vacation. So, as eternity, we are living mind.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, what I observe in the news and what I've observed on the social media
Mm.
platforms, this is kind of how we digest information these days. I mean, the news networks are not really as prevalent as people, are on streaming services. We don't have cable television that everybody watches. So I'm noticing a pattern because it's not like we need to hide our heads and ignore the world out there. We need to know what's happening, but not necessarily get consumed by it. Now, don't let it affect you entirely. And so, what I've been observing is there's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of fear from all walks of life, regardless of what their disposition is or what their beliefs are or what they've researched and, studied. It's that the general consensus out there is fear.
Yeah. Which is also like it's like don't even think about fear, but it's like you're surrounded by it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, well, how do you not think about fear? But the reality is it's out there, and it's in the collective consciousness, and this is the soul field. So when we like access that energy of the collective, I think it's important that we redirect and we can utilize our will to move the mind.
Well, and fear sometimes comes in without even like rational thinking. You just have it like physically affect you in your body. A lot of people have this fear of like anxiety or kind of panic within their bodies that they can't pinpoint. And then they try to rationalize it with their minds, right? It's because of this. It's because of this. It's because of this.
Oh, can you talk more about that? Because I think that's super relevant to people because a lot of people suffer from extreme anxiety. And I think
Yeah.
that it becomes a cycle. So can you elaborate more on that?
Well, I mean, pretty much, like you said, what we think manifests. What we think manifests, or what we feel, we start rationalizing it into words. Be like, well, it must be because of these things, because we're rational people. And so we try to equate things based on what we think. And it's not always the true, because it could be totally made up fears. Like maybe there is no logical reason why you're feeling fear in the moment, but we try to rationalize it because that's what our brain does. And so then we try to go through the news and like, oh, it's because this is happening in the world and this is causing a lot of fear around me and I'm feeling a lot of fear because of these, pretty much a formula, this and that equals fear, right? And so but that's not necessarily so. What if it's just simple as that we don't know what we don't know, and
Mm.
so we're afraid of the unknown. And that's all it is. We're afraid of what is not known. And I believe that, the word that keeps coming up in the collective consciousness is unprecedented times. So what
Mm.
does that imply? It has never been, it's not common. Unprecedented means it hasn't happened very often or maybe never happened yet. So then that causes fear because we don't know what's going to come from this unprecedented event, right?
Yeah, and I think that like because as I hear you talking, what I keep feeling is like, is there a way for us to have the observer effect, where we're observing the fears and we're observing what's going on in our mind, but not allowing it to control how we're feeling internally.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, we all know, but sometimes we need reminders, right?
Right. So do you think that like meditation, a type of meditation or something like that could help with, because the mind is such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a part of who we are, but it's also such a powerful tool.
Hmm.
And so we want to be using it for good and not refueling the cycle of fear within the collective consciousness. And I know every person on the planet is good. And they don't want to be in that trap of fear. They want to step out of that and really create a life of beauty and joy. But how do they do that? Like on a day-to-day basis, we have to have like a daily reprieve to create positivity.
Well, meditation, I think, is really important. However, I think lots of people meditate and they don't necessarily get the results they want.
Mm.
They get stuck in their own fears sometimes in meditation. So they can get into this, like, what is that, freeze, flight, or fight, state. And so, I believe this is from my personal experience that you need something bigger. You need something bigger than what you are. You need something
Mm.
bigger as a purpose. So instead of just like living your life just to get a paycheck, just to get to, the bed, just to go through the work, just to get another paycheck, Like you need something bigger than that. You need a greater purpose. And I feel like that truly gives us that kind of like, when you're in this, like, say, for example, a run. I'm in the run. I want to do a mile and a half. I'm in the middle of it. I'm in the middle of it. I can't stop because I'm still in the middle of the run. It's not pleasant. I'm sweating like crazy. Nobody's liking it. But, like, at the same time, my goal is to get to the end, and that fuels me to complete my run. If I didn't have a goal, then I don't even know why I would continue to run, you know?
Mm. So you think desire, because when I hear you talk about that, I'm like, oh, so you really desires to achieve that goal. Like there is a
Desire's
desire or
huge.
fuel, like a fire, an inner flame, an inner fire that moves us forward. So like almost like the spirit driving the body.
Well, exactly, Megan. And you know all about that topic. Um, because, when you have a true purpose of why you're here, the true divine purpose of why you're here, then that desire is automatic. It will just be there. No matter what obstacles or challenges that come before you, you're going to get through it no matter what because you have to get to your that goal.
Yes. And then once you hit that goal, you create another and you
Exactly.
have another goal.
Uh-huh.
And that fuels your spirit. And we're learning and we're experiencing and we're loving and we're, building connections. And, one of my purposes is connecting with people. It's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast is because I feel like I can reach people that I would not normally reach. And that connectivity really, really fills my heart. But I think it's taken a really long time for me to accept that this has been a part of my purpose. And
Mm.
I think a lot of healing modalities and working with meditation and working with like a spiritual guide or a mentor to help me to be okay with who I am and accept who I am. And I think that maybe the world is kind of in a place of like, well, how do I do that? How do I find my purpose?
I used to try to do it by myself in my 20s. And up until my late 20s, I was like on my own solo trying to figure it out. And I've reached limits just from studying books, or back then online research wasn't really that big. I am that old. But, like reading books and talking to people, going to meditations, going to different systems. And I just didn't find that peace that was going to propel me forward into what I was here to do until I met, the right people in my life that introduced me to the Modern Mystery School. And I can't say there was like one specific moment where I'm like, aha, this is it. But there are so many amazing people along the touch points in my life that keep urging me and guided me and supported me and just encouraged me to keep going. And there's so many to count that I can't say all of their names. Just truly amazing people in this tradition that allowed me to kind of like to get that encouragement to keep moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. The relationships that you build along the journey of exploring who you are has been I think one of the greatest adventures that I've had so far is that the people that I've met and the relationships that I've built. And yeah, some of it has been like, a roller coaster and it, again, it is a journey, but I've had so much fun doing this, like like learning about myself and through the reflection of others, through the
Yes.
mirroring, all of it.
Yes. And yeah, I feel really complete inside that I never had before. There's like that some people feel like there's something missing. I don't have that anymore. Like that's all kind of settled, because I feel like I'm truly living the life I want to live. And I want to share that for others. I wish people would get to a place in their life that they have that kind of like feeling of fulfillment within themselves.
Yeah, and it's funny because like so two things, like I've always wanted the more to life. Like I've always wanted to seek the more. And my background is in I worked with mental health. And so I love the mind and I was very captivated by it. And I had this dream of wanting to heal, different kinds of fractures of the mind, like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. And so like coming into the mystery school has given me the opportunity to not only heal like my own stuff with the mind, but to now use it in a way that is powerful and beautiful and creates change, not only for me, but for others. And I've seen healing with people that I've worked with that have had some mental illness.
Yeah.
So, that's also a greater purpose because it was like I was 6 years old and I was like, I want to be a psychiatrist. And like, so it was like always been something that I really, really was captivated by. And now understanding that all is mind from the, Kabbalion and the Hermetic traditions, it's like, oh, of course. So I've always been a seeker, right? And I've always felt full from the mystery school because I'm like, of course, I'm seeking more, I'm seeking more, I'm seeking more, but I'm always met. There's always more to learn. There's always like mind blowing experiences with classes. I mean, we just went with, Mage in Japan, and it was like, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, like,
It was a little wind in our faces.
yeah,
But
it was so
but
good.
the connections we made there is priceless. I mean, the people in that class, we were like, I love the people that were in the class with us, and I love the teachers. I mean, we're probably going on and on about how much we love the modern mystery school, but truly we do. Like, it's just kind of, we could keep going on, but, we'll just hopefully not go on too long because it's true that.
I mean, the thing is we've had such positive results, both
Yeah.
with our own mind and our body too, because we've both, struggled a little bit with things with our bodies. So it's like we've known that focusing the mind to move through a block is possible, even when it has to do with the mind. And
Yes.
we've both had to do that.
We both had that experience and we accomplished it. We were able to move through the blocks.
100%. But I really believe that if I didn't have the training from mystery school, and if I didn't have the training of make it yours, then I probably would have quit. And so I'm just really, really grateful. Today, I'm just really grateful, really thankful.
Yes, gratitude is huge. I have that in my heart as well.
Yeah. So do you have any tips on like if somebody is struggling with like they have things going on in their life and they're not really sure how to shift it? How maybe there's like an internal mantra or an affirmation that you could offer?
Well, I don't know about a mantra, but I always look at what you're digesting. What are you
Mm.
feeding your mind? What are you surrounded by? Are you surrounded by lots of negativity, lots of negative comments? Are you reading all the comments on Facebook? Like, are you, what are you feeding your mind? And read the energy of what you're reading all the time. And if it's negative, then maybe take a little breather. Just take a break from all that negativity and come to the center of yourself. Like, just really just take a break and be like, you know what? What is really happening right now in this moment?
Yeah, I there's a technique. It's kind of like cognitive, cognitive something, where you're like retraining your thinking. And so
Okay.
like I did it today where I was like all of a sudden I was feeling like a little pity or a little sorry for myself and had these really not great thoughts happening. And I just automatically, because of the observer, I stopped and I was like, no, that's not true. And then all of a sudden it just got really quiet. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay. So it's like, it's almost like a retraining. We have to retrain ourselves to think positive.
Yes, and most of our fears are not grounded in reality.
Mm.
We could spin ourselves out with fear upon fear upon fear. That's why it's always good to get back to center and be like, what's really happening right now? What is in my immediate field that's actually going to harm me? And most of the time, not much.
Right. And it's so funny because we tend to live in the fears of the future or the regrets of the past that we forget the present moment.
Yeah.
So if we can just like take a moment to be like, whoa, 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 and like, where are my feet? What's happening to me physically? Like
Yep.
again, the component of the mind to the body. Like, oh, okay, I'm sitting here, focus on my breathing. I'm breathing in, relaxing the body, and that tends to create a stillness in the mind when we focus on breathing.
And then if we keep doing that as a practice, you get a lot easier to get to that centered state.
Yeah, I think that the mind, I believe that the mind is a muscle. And so when I teach meditation classes, I explain that it's a muscle. And so when you start meditating, like maybe start for 5 minutes or 8 minutes, set an alarm and sit for that time period. And then over time, you're going to find that 30 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour isn't going to stretch you because your mind is a muscle and you're growing it. We don't go into the gym and lift 300 pounds. We go and we start at 40.
Yes.
So we have to build up to it. So it's like this is like a reprogramming of the mind, but you have to become aware of
Yeah.
actually what's happening in there.
Yes. And, of course, I recommend doing the mystery school things, like get activated, take classes. Of course, that's going to help you to get empowered so that you can really take control of the steering wheel of your life.
Do you think that there's a like a specific, if you had a client that was going to come to you and said, "Hey, I'm spinning out in my mind. I have, I keep run, I'm on autopilot, and I'm like, it's either freeze or, run or whatever. What is that? It's not an
It's
anxiety attack,
freeze, fight, or flight.
right? Yeah, so it's a stress response, right?
Hmm.
So if a client came to you and said that's their symptomology, what would you use initially to start to help the client to get it out of that?
Well, first I would talk to them just to see where they're at and just kind of ground them in reality and
Mm,
just to, get them back to their body, get them back to what's happening, and then talk about what's really the cause of all that. Because, yeah, there's always a
yeah,
root cause. Like, what started the spin out, right? And then I would
yeah,
guide them accordingly based on what they need. So it's not like there are certain things you have to do in order to do something else, like prerequisites, but everybody's unique and everybody's experiencing life a little bit differently. And so I always advise them based on what they need.
I love that.
What about you,
Yeah,
Megan?
because I'm a huge fan of Insophic Ray
Uh huh.
modality.
Yeah.
I really feel like that's something that helps a lot with the mind and the body.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you that each individual is experiencing life in a very set ways, basically from their own, physical dimensions of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what meets this one person isn't necessarily going to meet that one person. Maybe this person needs etheric reconstruction, or maybe this person really just needs to get and empower thyself and get some tools
Yes.
so that they can bring some more light into their life.
And
So
sometimes
it
they just
just
want to talk to someone.
exactly.
Yeah.
And as we are guides, we are here to provide that container for people to feel safe and to feel security and to feel like there is guidance and a directive of like, okay, we're going this direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that when we're talking about fear, a lot of it is because people don't feel safe.
It's true. It's the unsafe, right? The fear is the unsafe. Yeah. But there is there is the outside the comfort zone unsafe feeling, right?
Mm,
Which is a
mm.
little bit different than the fear unsafe.
Yeah, well, I mean, with fear, it's kind of like you do it anyway. You feel the fear and then you do it anyway.
Yeah, some of us do, some of us don't. Some of us buckle. It depends. Hmm. Depends on how we're raised.
What would you think would be the gauge of that? Like, what would cause us to actually feel the fear and move, like, to connect with that courage energy, that strength energy, the tarot card? Like, how do you feel the fear and do it anyway?
Mm. Like, what's the fear that's irrational and what's the fear that you need to move through? That's kind of what you're asking.
Ah,
Hmm.
yeah.
But I
Okay,
would say, like, it's about
that's clarity.
discernment. That's that compass within. You have to know what's real and what's not real.
Good.
And that's what I believe I've gained from this mystery school tradition is to have that clear discernment of reality.
So I really love that you mentioned that compass and the like our internal compass that guides us with discernment. And that's been a really tough thing for me to actually work on. I've had some experiences in my life where I've made some poor decisions based on lack of clarity and discernment, and the fruits were not good. So a lot of times now, my internal compass, I need to reach a place of stillness so that I can access that like that inner voice, like that still small voice. I like to call it a God feeling, not the gut feeling, but the God feeling. And then that's my compass, and that guides me into correct decision making because I know discernment has a lot to do with making decisions.
Yes.
And then the fruits reveal themselves, and that's usually very positive, like beautiful flowers, fruits.
Yes. The fruits are what tell you if you made the right discerning choice.
Sometimes it's hard because you're like, well, what? Like you get your mind a little bit like, well, what? Did I do it right?
Yeah. No, you know. You'll know if you did it right because
Yeah.
your life will be it will be evidently so.
It will. And the thing is It's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I've learned in my journey as an initiate is that it's okay to learn mistakes or make mistakes because that's how we learn sometimes. And I'm not going to know all the correct answers,
Mm-mm.
but I have to learn from the mistakes. And these mistakes have taught me a lot about clarity and discernment.
I've actually learned the most from my mistakes, as
Exactly.
painful as they are. But I learned the most. They are our biggest teachers.
Mhm.
So, I'm a perfectionist. Like, I grew up as a perfectionist. I want everything to perfect. So I get into this freeze mode of like, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to make the
Mhm.
wrong step. I don't want to make the wrong choice. But that's also the wrong choice. So it's almost better to make the best discerning, assessment of the next steps and try it, knowing that you're trying your best, and then adjust accordingly if it was a misstep.
Right.
Yeah.
And see, I love what you just said. You said you're trying your best,
Yeah.
but you actually did something.
Yeah.
Like you didn't just spin out and be like, oh, well, I'm not going to do it because I'm afraid of failure or I'm
Or
afraid I'm
yeah,
not going to be
exactly.
successful, right?
Yeah.
It's no, just make a decision, see what happens, look around you. Are the fruits good? And just keep going and make adjustments where necessary.
And I've done that mistake of not wanting to make a move because I don't want to get in trouble or I don't want to get judged, and
Mhm.
that's also a mistake.
I get it. I
Yeah.
do. I do. One of the things for me had to do a lot with responsibility. Like I didn't want the responsibility of making decisions. And I think that's where I was afraid to discern correctly. Because I was like, well, I just want to default to somebody else to take care of it for me. Because
Because
I didn't want to take responsibility.
what does responsibility? Why were you afraid of responsibility? What would that give you that was so scary?
I think that I've been a really good follower and I listen to instruction very well, but leading has been quite a challenge. And I think the challenge is that the responsibility and the weight of that tends to, I don't know if it's confused me or like I just, the responsibility, it's growing up.
Mm,
It's really about growing up.
being an adult.
Right, it's about adulting and not having this we can go into the threads of codependency of like, oh well, everybody's always taking care of me and look how cute I am. Like I need
Hmm.
help and whatever. But that's not reality. The reality is I'm actually a really strong, beautiful, independent woman and I am a leader, right? And I need to own that. And I need to own being a queen and not being a princess anymore that needs to be saved. And so I think that that's really relevant a lot of times in the world now with the goddesses on the planet, is that we need to stand up and claim our power as queens, as goddesses. So thank you for actually bringing that to me because it gave me the opportunity to talk about it.
Sorry to put you on the spot there. It just came
Woo!
through. But I feel like maybe a lot of the fears that we're seeing in the world and the collective consciousness is based on childhood fears.
Yeah,
And most of us, if we actually became that adult in our lives, that the world would be a much different place than what we're looking at.
yeah, yeah. And I think we also need good role models as adults.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times we don't have a good role model as adults. We're not taught correctly when we're little.
Uh huh.
And you're starting to see good visions of that now, a good role models and people to teach us correctly of like what adulting really is and what that looks like. And but I think that's important for us to feel safe enough to grow up and to claim our power.
Mm, yes. And that kind of comes back to this class I just took and actually is really relevant called Parenting with Hermetic Wisdom, which is
Hmm.
all about adulting with responsibility, with morals and ethics, and how to do that properly. And so I think it's right for the times.
Like I've just heard so many good things about it, and the healing that comes as a result of it, but also just the illumination of like, wow, okay, wait a minute, that wasn't necessarily my fault, and now I can do this in the future to create something different or new in my life. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
Hmm. And I think I want to maybe touch upon the thought patterns that we have, our self-talk that we say to ourselves,
Yeah.
because that's in our mind, right? What are we saying to ourselves? And like, no one's gonna be nicer to you than yourself. So if you want to be treated well, or if you want people to think nicely about you, what are you saying to yourself that you don't want to hear from other people?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a big box to uncover because, again, we have to become aware of even what the conversation we're having in our head.
Uh-huh.
And then when we become aware that we're having this conversation and that it doesn't uh, reflect our worthiness, then we have to stop that. We have to recreate a scenario or situation in our mind where it's positive self-talk versus the negative.
Yeah. And worthiness is huge because worthiness shows you your value. Like how you value yourself is directly reflected in your world around you.
Mhm.
So if you don't feel worthy, which means I don't value myself, then the world around you, you probably have issues with finances, relationships, all kinds of stuff.
Well, and we have a relationships class actually that Sovereign teaches, and it's about the relationship with everything, and everything's relationships. And so even our relationship with money, how then our relationship with our mind,
Yeah,
like
totally.
that's so relevant,
Yeah.
right? So what is your relationship with your mind? What is going on there? Are you listening? Are you a bystander? Are you observing? Are you engaging in that drama story of mental masturbation? Like there's a lot going on there. So like we have to quiet it down. And the Kabbalah really helps with bringing those thought waves and those thought forms down to, a minimal amount in a minute. But there's still ways for us on a daily basis to just become aware, to just take a moment and stay in the place of stillness or that oneness of like, I'm not in the future, I'm not in the past, here I am
Yep.
right now in my chair.
Exactly. Because we're often, even though we talk a lot, Megan, even at our level, we are often with ourselves most of the time. Like we can't be with somebody else all the time, right? And so it's important to know how to get yourself back to center when nobody else is around. And this
Yeah.
is what a lot of my studies with the modern mystery schools allowed me to be empowered so that when no one's around, it's just me and God and the world around me, that I have the tools, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the understanding to apply what I know and to move forward anyways.
Yeah. As I was hearing you talk about that, my last journey over the last, I would say the 6 months previously, I had to really explore that, not having the dependency on other people and just being with me and God. And what I found was that I really didn't trust me and I really didn't trust God.
Well, you
So I
can't trust
think,
God without trusting yourself. Vice
correct.
versa.
See?
Yeah.
Exactly. So if we're having an issue with trusting God, then we need to really ask the question, do I trust myself?
The answer is
Do I
no.
have faith in myself if I don't have faith in God?
The answer is no. I mean, let's just
Very
be honest
simply.
here. Yeah, if you don't, yeah, we don't need. The answer is no. You don't trust God if you don't trust yourself.
Right. And the same is true for faith and every other,
Yeah.
because that is the reflection, remember, we're doing mirror work in all ways, especially as adepts.
Because everything outside of us is reflected of you.
As within, so without.
As above, so
Yes.
below.
Well, I am super grateful that we have our wonderful listeners to check in with us whenever we release a new podcast. So thank you again for tuning in and listening to us talk about the mind.
Yes, and if you like our content, please follow, like, or subscribe to our channel. And we'll hope to keep making more content for the future to share our experience and knowledge and wisdom that we gain along the way.
Yeah, and I want to thank Third Order and the Council of Goddesses for holding space for us to continue to move forward in our lineage and on the world for all of humanity. Thank you so much. We're so grateful.
Yes. And with that, signing
I
off.
love you, Chiyona.
Oh, sorry, let's do it again.
I miss you.
I love you too, Megan. I love you, Megan.
Talk soon, bestie.
Oh, yeah. So, with that, signing off.
Bye.